Here is a number that nobody in Washington wants to talk about right now. On day one of this war, Iran launched roughly 350 missiles in a single day. Today, on day 19, that number is down to around 50. The Pentagon is pointing to that drop and calling it proof that the campaign is working. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth stood at a podium and said Iran's entire ballistic missile production capacity has been functionally destroyed. President Trump posted on social media calling it a total victory in progress. And at first glance, that 86% decline in missile launches sounds like a decisive win. But here's the thing nobody is saying out loud. The IRGC's operational kill chain, the actual command and targeting system that tells Iran where to aim and when to fire, is still intact. The Hudson Institute confirmed it. The ICT confirmed it. Iran is not firing less because it cannot fire. Iran is firing less because it is choosing to. And that one distinction changes everything about how you read this war. Because a military force that is rationing its remaining weapons for maximum political impact is not a military force on the verge of collapse. It is a military force executing a strategy. And right now, that strategy looks a lot more patient, a lot more calculated, and a lot more dangerous than the headlines are letting on. Stay with me, because what I am about to walk you through changes the entire picture of where this conflict is actually heading. Welcome back to Unlocked History Hub. If you are new here, this is where we go beyond the headlines and give you the full picture with real numbers, real context, and an honest read on what is actually happening. If that is what you are here for, hit that subscribe button right now and turn on the bell notification. We cover this story every single day, and you do not want to miss what comes next. Now let us get into it. To understand why the IRGC's intact kill chain is such a critical piece of information, you need to understand what a kill chain actually is and why destroying launchers alone does not end a war. A kill chain is the full sequence of steps that turns a military capability into an actual strike. It starts with intelligence, knowing where the target is. It moves to decision-making, getting authorization to fire, then targeting, feeding coordinates to the weapon, then execution, the actual launch. The US and Israel have been systematically destroying the physical end of that chain. They have hit launchers, missile storage sites, production facilities, fuel depots, and radar arrays. According to CENTCOM, more than 300 Iranian missile launchers have been destroyed or damaged since February 28th. The IDF reported striking over 7,600 targets across Iran in nearly 5,000 aerial sorties. Those are enormous numbers, but what they have not destroyed is the brain of that system. The command infrastructure that decides when, where, and what to fire. And as long as that brain is functioning, Iran can still direct whatever weapons it has left with precision and purpose. Here is why that matters so much right now. Analysts at the Hudson Institute noted something very specific in their latest assessment. Iran is not randomly firing whatever it has left. It is conducting what they called politically timed salvos. That means Tehran is holding back its remaining capability and deploying it selectively in moments that cause maximum psychological impact and maximum global attention. That is not the behavior of a military running out of options. That is the behavior of a military playing for time. And what exactly is Iran playing for time to achieve? That is the question I want you to sit with for a moment, because I think the answer is more complicated than either side's narrative admits. Let me give you the broader global picture of what this war has already done to the world, because I think Americans watching this deserve to understand the full cost of what is happening right now, not just the military scorecard. Brent crude oil is currently trading above $110 a barrel. Before this war started on February 28th, it was around $70. That is a roughly 57% increase in 3 weeks. The International Energy Agency has described the economic impact of this conflict as the worst energy disruption since at least the 1970s oil crisis. Europe is facing a projection of Eurozone growth being cut by up to 0.1%, with inflation rising by as much as 0.5%. Japan, which has roughly 60 days of emergency oil reserves, is holding emergency energy security meetings right now to calculate exactly how long those reserves last at current draw rates. South Korea, which relies heavily on Gulf oil, is facing similar calculations. And the Strait of Hormuz, through which 20% of the world's oil and a significant portion of global LNG transits every single day, is still effectively shut down. Over 150 ships are anchored outside the strait right now, waiting to see if it is safe to move. At the peak of normal operations, 60 tankers pass through that waterway every day. Right now, that number is close to zero. Then there is Iraq, a country that has nothing to do with this war and did not choose any of this. Iran supplies between 30 and 40% of Iraq's total electricity and gas needs. Following today's strike on the South Pars gas field, Iran halted all gas supplies to Iraq. The lights are going out across a country of 40 million people. That is the kind of collateral damage that rarely makes it into American news coverage, but represents a real humanitarian cost that is already happening right now, today, while the military debate continues in Washington about whether we are winning. And winning is exactly the word I want to examine, because there are two very different definitions of winning being used simultaneously, and they almost never get compared directly. The first definition is the military definition: destroy Iranian capability, degrade the missile arsenal, eliminate leadership, open the Strait of Hormuz. By those metrics, there has been genuine, measurable progress. Iran's missile launch rate is down 86% from day one. Its naval assets have been devastated. According to USNI reports, roughly 95% of Iran's navy has been rendered combat ineligible. Key leadership figures have been eliminated, including Ali Larijani, Iran's de facto leader, taken out in overnight strikes just yesterday. The command structure has been disrupted at multiple levels. These are real outcomes, not invented ones. But there is a second definition of winning, which is strategic and political. And by that definition, the picture is considerably more complicated. Because Iran entered this war with a very specific strategic goal. It does not need to defeat the United States militarily. It never thought it could. What it needs to do is make this war expensive enough, long enough, and globally disruptive enough that political pressure inside the United States, combined with diplomatic pressure from allies, combined with economic pressure from oil markets, creates a situation where Washington finds it more attractive to negotiate than to continue. And by that definition, Iran has made more progress than anyone on the American side seems willing to admit publicly. The Senate Armed Services Committee was already in open conflict with the administration over war costs before day 19. The total financial burn rate of this operation is running at approximately $1.5 billion per day. That is confirmed by multiple defense think tanks and war cost analysts. The U.S. has spent over $11 billion in just the first 6 days. Congress is being asked to authorize emergency supplemental appropriations for resupply, while 90% domestic opposition to this war is registering in polling. American families are paying more at the gas pump, more at the grocery store, more for heating their homes. And every day this continues, those numbers go up. Now let me give you my honest read on the trap question, because this is the part that I think is most underanalyzed. Is America winning, or is it walking into a trap? I think the honest answer is that both things can be true simultaneously, and that is what makes this moment so genuinely precarious. The US and Israel have achieved real military degradation of Iranian capability. That is documented and verifiable. But Iran's strategy was never to win a straight military fight. Iran's strategy was to impose costs, maintain strategic relevance, and outlast American political will. And the fact that we are on day 19, Iran's kill chain is still intact. The Strait is still closed. Global oil is above $110. America's forward ammunition supply is under strain. And the U.S. cannot get a single ally to contribute a single warship to help reopen the waterway suggests that Iran's patience is being rewarded in ways the American scorecard does not capture. Here is a specific data point that I think crystallizes this better than anything else. In the first 96 hours of this war, the United States and Israel fired approximately 5,197 munitions across 35 different weapon types. The replacement cost for those munitions alone, just the munitions, not the aircraft, not the base damage, not the logistics, is estimated at between $10 and $16 billion. That is 4 days of fighting. And here is the part that should make every American taxpayer pay attention. The Holston Army Ammunition Plant in Kingsport, Tennessee, which produces the high explosives used in virtually every precision-guided weapon in the American arsenal, had not received a single order to increase production as of March 12th. Not one. There is no second domestic facility that makes these explosives. If that plant does not surge output immediately, the weapons pipeline starts running dry regardless of how many emergency funding bills Congress passes. Iran knows this. Their strategy of sustained attrition is directly targeting this industrial choke point, and they do not need to fire a single missile at Tennessee to do it. Think about what that means in real terms. Every Patriot interceptor fired to stop an incoming Iranian drone costs between $3 and $4 million. Every Arrow 3 interceptor costs around $2 million. Iran's Shahed drones cost approximately $30,000 each. That is a cost-exchange ratio of roughly 100 to 1 in Iran's favor on every intercept. For 19 days, Iran has been bleeding American and allied missile defense inventories at that ratio, and those inventories have a finite floor. When they run out, the bases and cities they protect are exposed. Iran planned this war knowing that the 86% reduction in Iranian missile launches is not evidence that Iran has lost its ability to strike. It is evidence that Iran is managing a dwindling but still meaningful arsenal for maximum strategic effect, while the other side burns through expensive interceptors at 100 times the cost of the incoming round. Here is what I think happens over the next 72 hours and beyond. The 31st Marine Expeditionary Unit, 2,500 Marines aboard the USS Tripoli Task Force, is still en route from Japan. Their mission is to help physically secure the Strait of Hormuz and deal with the underwater and fast boat threats that Iran has been using to stop commercial traffic. Once they arrive, the calculus around the strait shifts. That is a real capability injection that could meaningfully change the situation on the water. But Iran's new Supreme Leader Mojtaba Khamenei has already issued a written statement saying the strait will remain closed regardless of U.S. military moves. That is not a bluff from a regime that has nothing left. That is a statement from a regime that still believes it has cards to play. And given that the IRGC kill chain is intact and the remaining arsenal is being conserved rather than exhausted, they may be right. What worries me most, looking at the full picture, is the gap between the public narrative and the operational reality. The public narrative in Washington is that Iran is being crushed and the war is in its final phase. The operational reality, according to defense analysts, think tanks, and verified battlefield data, is that Iran still has meaningful strike capability, its command system is functioning, its threats against Gulf energy infrastructure are credible, and the economic disruption it has already caused to the global economy is historically severe by any measure, the worst energy disruption since the 1970s. That is not what a losing side produces. That is what a side that is absorbing punishment while waiting for the other side to blink looks like. I want to hear your thoughts on this because this is genuinely one of the most complex strategic situations in modern memory. Drop your answer in the comments below. Do you think America is winning this war, or has Iran been executing a trap from day one? And what do you think happens when the Marines arrive at the Strait? Does it force a resolution, or does it trigger the next escalation? I read every single comment, and the conversations this community has on videos like this are genuinely the most valuable part of what we do here. If this breakdown gave you something the mainstream news did not, please share this video with someone who needs to understand what is actually happening. Most people are getting the headline version. You just got the full picture. Share it. We are Unlocked History Hub. Stay informed, stay sharp, and we will see you in the next one.